Hi everybody, and welcome to Charger 360, telling the stories of the University of New Haven. I'm J.W. Stewart, joined as always by Bruce Barber. Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Always nice to be joined by a president.
Yes.
J-Dub.
Yes. We are very fortunate to have our student body president, our USGA president, Darby Brown is here. Darby's a senior. USGA, by the way, stands for Undergraduate Student Government Association, and she's also a forensic science major and minoring in sociology. We're going to talk to Darby today. I don't know how she does everything she does. It's pretty amazing. We were just chatting here before we came on camera, and I'm amazed at how much you are able to accomplish. But first of all, Darby, welcome to Charger 360.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here.
And tell us, how did we get lucky enough to have you as a University of New Haven student?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start in high school. So in high school, I went to a VOTEC school, actually, and I studied teaching there. So I made quite the pivot when I came here. But something that I kind of learned early on in that kind of like career was that teaching, I don't think was for me at the time. But I was really into the sciences. And I took AP Psych my sophomore year, and I got really, really into neuroscience. But at the same time, I was really, really interested in like crime show TVs, which is probably, you hear a lot probably with this major. So I kind of took both of those paths, the neuroscience path and the forensic science path, and evaluated both. And I never thought that forensic science could be a career I could go into because it was in the media and it was on TV, and I was like, no way I could do this like in real life for a job. But then I did some research and I kind of like focused my studies, and then I found this school was feedback accredited. That's kind of how I started my search. I didn't really have like a dream school to go to, but I had a dream career and a dream major. So I started my search that way, and then I ended up here, and I toured here, and it was just amazing, and I loved every bit of the campus, and yeah, and then I applied, got in, and here I am.
You're from New Jersey, is that right?
I am from New Jersey.
So forensic science major, you mentioned the TV shows. I'm always fascinated to ask forensic science majors this question. Where we see one thing in TV and movies. What is it like actually in the classroom? Is there any correlation or not?
Yes and no. That's kind of what I've learned. It's like little things here and there. I'm like, okay, that's good, and that's horrible. And it's a back and forth that the media kind of toes, the TV shows and movies. I remember I was talking to my mom the other day actually, and she was like, oh, but you can be, I was like talking about her, like I want to go into firearms and ballistics investigations. And she was like, oh, but you could be Abby from NCIS and do everything. I was like, that's not how it works in the real world. You would never find someone doing all of that. And if you did, they'd have years and years of schooling and education and all that stuff. So. But yeah, some of the things they do really, really great, and you can kind of see that based on like what education I get here, and then you can see some of the things I'm like, not exactly, but getting there.
So when we look at everything you're doing on campus, it makes me tired.
Yeah.
First of all, but you're on the cheer squad, correct?
Yes.
You got multiple majors. You're doing a 4+1, which is a neat thing. So you're going to get your graduate degree next year.
Yep.
And then you decide to run for USGA president.
Yes.
Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I've been involved with student leadership here at New Haven since my freshman year here. I got involved through class office first, and something that is unique to our student government is that our class officers have the opportunity to serve on our House of Representatives as a rep for the class. So to vote on behalf of the class, to advocate on behalf of the class. Oh, there's me.
Yep. Look at that.
For me to promote class events, things like that. And so I was the only member my freshman year who could attend our general meeting, or the USGA general meetings. And so I went to the meetings, and I was like, oh, I never thought I could be there, like sitting up on stage, because we have our meetings in the Bucknell Theater. I was like, that could never be me. But yeah, throughout that first year, I was like, this is something that is cool. So then I kind of transitioned over into being a senator, which I represented the population, women in sports, which I'm a part of, being a member of the cheer team and being an athlete and kind of seeing that world. And then it was during that year that I was like, what, maybe I could see myself up on that stage. And then later in my sophomore year, I then transitioned to another position on the executive board when I finally decided that, what, I'm gonna run for president. And then it wasn't until probably like halfway through last year that I made the complete decision to run again. Although a lot of people around me already knew I had made that decision. I don't think I knew myself, but they knew it. So yeah, that's how I got here.
That's an interesting story. I want to go back to your sophomore year. That's when you decided to run for
Yes,
president.
yes.
So that junior year, you're ready to go. What was the process like? Like, what is it like running for USG
Yeah.
president? What happens and who are you running against?
Yeah, so when I ran my sophomore year, I had one other opponent who I ran against, which, had kind of been the case. Over, since COVID, I think USGA has seen a decline in engagement, but that's also kind of what we've seen with all of our organizations across campus, so nothing surprising. But when I, kind of made that decision to run, part of it was like, how do I campaign? How do I appeal to the people? And so something that I found quite useful is creating a campaign Instagram, actually. And that's how I connected with a lot of students on campus. That's how I connected with my friends. I would ask them to repost posts that I was posting to get more traction. And something else that I had kind of going for me was my experience in USGA. And I think that's kind of what almost set me apart. I had experience both in our House of Representatives and in our Senate, and then again in our executive board at a different position. And so throughout that journey, I really kind of drew upon the experiences and the leadership skills I had gained from every single position I had previously served to campaign why I was a good president. And at the conclusion of the campaign, we enter a voting period. And the way that USGA does voting is that for our president and for our vice president of engagement, we need at least 5% of the student body to vote in the election in order to certify the votes. And so then another challenge kind of faced is like, how do we now get people to vote? And so that's something that I've also taken on in this role, not only last year, but also this year, is like different ways and tactics we can get people to vote. Very similar to how we're seeing for this November election with our actual US president. We do tabling of Martell's and Bergami. We have candidates, helping promote themselves. But yeah, our election system is crazy. The USGA Constitution is long. I've read it all. So if you ever want to talk more about that, I got your back.
And really, the goal is, a lot of it is it's advocating for students and it's student life.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the honor and pleasure of meeting with several members of university administration, including Dean Allen and also University President Jens Fredrickson. So even in past years, someone in this position has met with those two kind of individuals, both to advocate for students and the change that they want to see on campus, but also give them updates on what student life is like. Something that I've kind of learned in this role is that sometimes the members of an administration aren't as connected to student life as they could be, which is fair. Important people, they got big jobs. And so part of what I also try and do is gauge what students are feeling. How are they handling a change across campus, or if a decision was made, how are they reacting to that? And so I see part of my job is also to be a liaison between the student body and the members of university administration. That way they still have a grasp of what student life is like. But I also have, again, the opportunity to, as you said, advocate for the students. If there's a change that they want to see, if there's something they have a question on, I always spare part of that meeting time to ask those questions and get some answers. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and report back during our general meetings that, I met with university president, or I met with Dean Allen, and this is what they're telling me about what you all asked.
What are some of the things that the student body asks for when you talk to them? What's the message that they're giving you to pass on to the administration?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things from last year was the decision about commencement. So to move commencement on campus away from the Hartford Healthcare Amphitheater in Bridgeport. One of the biggest things that we saw was the class of 2024 actually put a petition through the student government to advocate to move that location back, in addition to wanting to have student voice on the commencement committee. And so something that I did is, when that passed the legislature, I went and took that to, at the time, Dr. Z and Dean Allen and our provost, and I said, this is what students are saying, this is what students want, how can we move forward? And part of what I look to do in that role is also, like, sometimes I do understand that decisions can't be rolled back. Like, that was a massive decision, and a lot of time and effort had already been input to make that decision and roll that out. And so my next game plan and my mindset was, how can we compromise with the student body? How can we make sure that their feelings and their thoughts are heard moving forward? A lot of it was that USGA was actually facing a lot of questions, and I wouldn't say backlash, but we certainly got a lot of complaints about that decision specifically, as we do with a couple other things. And so what we always try to do is saying, it's not at us, we don't have control to make those decisions, but we have access to the people who do make those decisions. And so then part of our job is being like, okay, like, this is this happened, we're helping the student body move on from this, but going forward, what can be done differently, and how can we move forward and make sure that student voices and their thoughts and opinions and feelings are included, because at the end of the day, it's the students who are affected.
So I can't believe all the things you're doing well. And then there's cheerleading.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with our cheer team?
Yeah, so I cheered all throughout high school. I've been cheering since middle school, and I came into this university and I was like, I don't know if I want to cheer. I knew coming into this forensic science program that was very rigorous, really, really difficult scientific classes, and I didn't know if I was ready to handle all of it at once. And so I entered my fall semester freshman year, and I was kind of going through the motions, and the cheer team had posed an open fall tryout. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go. I didn't tell anybody but my mom at the time. And I was like, I'm not even gonna tell anybody I'm doing this. I'm just gonna go do it. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No harm, no foul. And it happened, and I got on the team. And yeah, it's been quite the journey. I think, coming from my high school experience, we were quite competitive back in Jersey, and we had, a lot of different skills. And I think the cheer team has certainly seen a lot of different, sides and a lot of different, ways, I guess. It's certainly been through a lot. My coach the freshman year, when I entered the team, was fired actually quite recently after the additions to the team were announced. So part of my, what I'll call, class. And so that was a huge transition. And then we now have a wonderful head coach, and she's kind of been with us since now my sophomore year, and she's certainly helped us grow. We went to a national competition last year down in Daytona Beach, Florida, which was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience for all of us, and in the cheerleading world, it's a huge thing. And so, yeah, just getting involved with that, it's an outlet for me, which is, part of the reason why I can manage it all is I don't see it as another thing on my plate. Cheer is actually one of the biggest outlets I've always had consistently in my life. So throughout middle school, throughout high school, any trials and tribulations, I always had cheer to fall back on. And that's kind of what I have here as well, so.
This is a debate that's gone on for a long time. Are cheerleaders athletes?
Absolutely yes. Yeah, absolutely yes. That is a 100% yes. I think for me, coming from this sport and seeing the way in which my team and my fellow athletes compete and the level at which we compete at and the training that we put in, it's comparable to every other sport we have here on this campus. And so I also look at, the dangerousness of cheerleading that people don't consider. I mean, we've had countless girls who have broken noses, who have injured them, one of their joints, ankles. Concussions is a big one.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I look at, all of these statistics of the gym hours that we're putting in and the study hall hours we're putting in, that is the standard that other athletes on different NCAA D2 teams here at the university are expected to meet. And we are meeting those requirements. And so something that, I've always, struggled with being a cheerleader for the majority of my life, throughout high school especially, and also now here, is that a lot of athletic departments don't recognize cheer. And so we've been very grateful that athletics has helped us grow, not only as a program, but also in recognition over the past few years. And I think that's in part to the talent of the athletes that we do have on the team. I think the more talent and the more skill that we get, the more showcasey we look, and that draws people in. And the more people we have on our side, it helps us be recognizable to people in athletics, to people across the world, to see that cheerleading is a sport.
Wow. Well, it's so great hearing your story, because you've got such a great vibe, and it's just great to have you as a student. So, and I love the way you speak about your mom and your relationship and the way she's guiding you and being somebody to talk to. So for other families, this was a great fit for you and your family, because this is really a commitment with a family.
Absolutely.
So to other families that are thinking about this, what do you think it is about the University of New Haven that makes it a right fit for someone?
Yeah. So also additional context, I've worked orientation the past 2 years. So I've actually had firsthand interacting with families who were new families to the college experience. And so part of what drew me in and kept me here was the communities that I've found. And I also find that in speaking to my peers, whether they're a member of an RSO, whether it's a member of the cheer team, whether it's, my peer in a classroom or in a lab setting, they found their community here at UNew Haven. For me, I found it through the cheer team. I found it through USGA. I mean, I'll have friends for a lifetime in either of those settings. And I've also had, a wide variety of educational experience here that I will never forget and never let go of. And so for the families who are considering, having this be the students' home for the next 4 years, do it. I mean, we have so many areas in which we try to enrich students' life both inside and outside of the classroom. And I think something that, I've kind of drawn on in my orientation experience, but also in my student leadership experience is that, emphasizing that point that it's not just a school, it's not just a university or a college. We have, recognized student organizations who have built communities for each other. We have athletic teams. We have campus employers who their employees are, close-knit like a family. And so through all of these aspects that makes up this campus, someone is going to find their niche here. Yeah. And I think that's so special. And I think even seeing it through a student government lens, seeing the wide variety and diversity of all of our student organizations that are student-led. I mean, it's student-built community. Like, what more could you want? It's just honestly amazing. And I encourage anyone considering to do it.
Contact marketing. Wait a minute. Let me just get this. Find your community. Yes. Yep. Wow. Well, I'm sold.
I am too. The college is a lot more than just studying and going to class.
Yes.
And it should be. And that's one of the big, great things about the University of New Haven is the communities, right? You can find your community here and you can power on.
Power on.
Right?
Power on, indeed.
You get the pen back. Thank you. Yes, I'm out.
USGA President Darby Brown, thanks for being here on Charger 360. Thanks for everything you do for our university and community, and best of luck. I know you'll be here for grad school too. Yes. So we look forward to seeing you over the next years plus too.
Thank you so much.
For Darby, for Bruce Barber, I'm J.W. Stewart. Thanks for joining us here on Charger 360, telling the stories of the University of New Haven. We'll see you next time, everybody.